What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Cjthecheesedj here, and we are back with another Greedfall video for you guys today. And today, guys, we'll be going over some tips and tricks for you guys that should help you get started in Greedfall. Now, guys, we've progressed through the game by quite a bit. You can see we're currently level 9 in the top right corner. So we're just going to jump straight away into these tips and tricks. Now, guys, the next tip is the attributes section. Once again, each of these coincides to a certain class that you pick. The top two coincide with the warrior. The middle two coincide with the rogue / technical class, and the bottom two coincide with the mage class. Now, don't be afraid, each of these once again can be selected however you want to be. For example, if you're playing as a rogue, you can select the strength skill to increase your armor damage. Same goes for mage, you can easily select the rogue skills if you want to. It's entirely up to you. However, do be advised that some weapons will require certain levels to be met. For example, we currently have a rapier in our inventory that requires a level 3 agility to wield it. You can see down here, we lack the skill to wield it. So because it is a one-handed blade, you do need the agility, which is what agility covers. So do keep that in mind as well. Same goes for blunt weapons. Blunt weapons will require strength, and the power rings will require mental power. However, you can slot in however the heck you want to. It's entirely up to you, and you aren't limited once again. Now, guys, the next thing I want to talk about is the talents list. When you first start off the game of Greedfall, I would heavily recommend picking lockpicking level 1, regardless of what class you pick, because with lockpicking you can actually unlock a whole heap of chests that you wouldn't normally be able to unlock. As well as that, it makes doing quests a lot easier, certain quests anyway, that have locked chests and whatnot, because you will need to scrounge around for the key, and it can take quite a bit of time. Lockpicking is one of those skills you definitely should invest in right at the beginning of the game, and once you get into the game a bit more, you can actually reset these skills, so don't fret too much. But yeah, definitely invest in a lockpicking skill as well. Now, guys, the next tip is always keep an eye out for camp areas. Camp areas are designated by the little bonfire that they have in the middle of them. You can also see them on the map as question marks if you have explored the area a little bit and you've kind of gone through it. These camp areas will allow you to fast travel through the region, which makes traveling through them a lot quicker, especially if you've got multiple camp areas set up throughout the region. All you need to activate these camp areas is to simply hit X on them once you actually can get around to them. As you can see, we are unable to get around to them. But from these camp areas, you can then access a crafting table, change your party members if you so choose to, as well as rest for the night. As well as that, there is a quest that goes along with setting up camp areas in every section. So I would definitely recommend keeping an eye out for camp areas. Now, guys, the next tip is always kill the beasts you find in the wild. Once you successfully kill a beast, you will then gain its page in the Bestiary, and that will give you some insight into how to kill the beast in future encounters. The Bestiary can be really useful for that particular role, and if you ever are struggling against certain enemies, you can actually check them up in the Bestiary, and you can see there it tells you what they are weak to. Resistant to magic, but rather vulnerable to elemental damage, quite vulnerable to elemental damage, resistant to magic, and so on and so forth. It fills you in each of the way, and it's a great thing to look up if you're struggling to attack or kill enemies. But that brings us to our next point. Loot everything, regardless of where you are, whether you're in a city, whether you're out in the wild with the, herbs and stuff like that. Loot everything, because everything has a use, from crafting alchemical concoctions to upgrading your armor. Just loot absolutely everything you can get your hands on. It is well worth it, and I would recommend doing so for the entirety of the game. Might get a little bit tedious, but believe me, it is definitely worth it. Now, guys, the next tip is with quests. Now, whenever you get quests, you are able to choose multiple ways to complete the quests, whether it be negotiating with a certain person, killing the certain person, or even just bypassing everything and breaking the person out that you need to. There are multiple ways to complete quests, and each of them offers a different way to experience the story, and I would recommend trying to complete the quests in what ways that tailor to your abilities. Now, guys, the next tip is to always try and stealth attack your enemies when you can. You saw there that there was a lot of health on that big boy, and we just bypassed pretty much all of that and instant killed him. So always try and sneak your way through to enemies whenever you see them in the wild, during quests, whatever, you name it, because stealth attacking does a lot more damage than your standard attacks, and it is a great way to begin an engagement. As you progress through the game of Greedfall, guys, you will find armor pieces that have these crafting slots on them. Now, these crafting slots can be filled, and you can currently see here that we have elemental resistance +8 and magical resistance +6. You can slot whatever you are able to make into these armor slots, and it is great because certain pieces give you certain protection. As well as that, you can also get pieces that upgrade certain aspects of your skills. You can currently see here with these gloves we have craftsmanship +1, as well as our hat having intuition +1 as well. So make sure you hold on to these pieces of armor as well and store them in your chest, because if you ever need to be able to make something, you've always got this craftsmanship boot armor over here that can give you that extra point as well. So I definitely recommend it, and make sure you slot out the armor slots with those crafting slots. Now guys, the next and final tip I have for you is to make sure that you bring a variety of weapons, whether that be a 1-blade weapon, a 2-blade weapon, or blunt weapons. Blunt weapons and 1-blade weapons are a great way to power through enemies. As you can see here, the blade weapon only does -7 to armor. However, blunt weapons actually shred through your opponent's armor, so you always want to be able to switch between the two. Now, you can equip 2 different weapons and switch between them with the press of R1 on PlayStation and vice versa on other consoles and PC. This will allow you to deal armor damage and then switch over to your bladed weapon in order to deal more health damage, and it is a much more reliable way of breaking through your opponents and defeating them quicker, as well as facing across against high armored targets. Because believe me, there are a lot of them in this game, and you will need all the help you can get. So making sure that you have that blunt and blade weapon can be a real boon for you in the game of Greedfall. But guys, that's going to wrap up the video today. Let me know what you thought of it down below in the comments. Let me know if there are any other tips that you guys recommend or anything like that. As well as that, let me know what you thought of the tips I recommended to you guys. But other than that, guys, thanks very much for watching, and hopefully I catch you in the next one.